president's key economic team goes to China.
After a whole night thinking, I say I still want to do it.
Hey there, this is Ray Ma, your China Tech Analyst. Welcome to TechBuzz China Livecasts by Pandaily. As the name suggests, these conversations are recorded live and then edited for your listening pleasure. Some of these chats are open to the public, and we welcome you to join us. So be sure to follow us on Twitter or sign up for our mailing list to get notified. Remember, members of TechBuzz China Insider get priority access. So if you're an investor or operator looking to join the smartest community online focused on China tech, go to techbuzzchina.com and see if you qualify. Extra thanks to our partner pandaily.com, where you can learn everything about China's innovation. Thanks for subscribing, guys, and do give us a review. Richard, thanks for being here. Could you give us an introduction about yourself?
So first of all, it's my great pleasure to be here today. Currently, I am doing cross-border investment in Silicon Valley, and I come from a fund called Grandview Capital. So our fund typically focusing to the Chinese go overseas companies. In Chinese, it is called Chuhai. It means a Chinese team doing their business in a new market, maybe an emerging market other than China.
Oh, what about yourself? What did you do before joining Grandview?
Actually, Grandview is founded in 2015. So I was in Silicon Valley and seeking some investment opportunities. The founder is Joe. So he is the first investor of TikTok. He is founding a Chinese go overseas direction fund. So by then, I just joined that team together with him.
So you co-founded Grandview Capital.
Yeah, kind of like that.
What were you seeing back then that made you want to start Grandview? What were the environmental factors that made you guys say, okay, 2015, this is the right time to focus on Chinese entrepreneurs who are attacking overseas markets?
By then, I was focusing like the D2C and the production go overseas. And Joe, he is focusing on the mobile internet. By then, he was the investment team leader in Chitech. And Chitech is a very big, famous company that doing their applications in the overseas market. They are doing a clean master. Yeah, actually, the trend, both the production from the manufacturing side and also the TMT side. So those two industries start their expanding to new market from maybe 2010 or even earlier. We could see that some companies like Cheetah Mobile or 3G Desktop, they produce their applications and launch them into a foreign market, like in US or in the emerging market like Southeast Asia. I think from 2013 to 2015, the big company, which is one of the best Chinese go overseas company musically, what we call it right now, TikTok, has been grown up. So that's why give us a potential opportunity to look at that Chinese-made application can be listed as rank 1 in a certain market, even in US. So that gave us some idea. Why not we build up a fund to find out more musically? So that's why we try to fund this Grandview Capital by then in 2015. And US has a very long history of the globalization. But China, because the domestic market is big enough, so many of the Chinese companies, they do not have the needs to go outside to expand to a new market. But the TMT industry and also the manufacturing industry, because their industry, they tend to have more cooperations between different companies in China and all over the world. So they put their eye into the world, early stages, early years.
So you think the nature of these two industries, specifically manufacturing as well as just technology, makes it easier for these companies to globalize? You're based in Silicon Valley and your partner is based in China. What's the reason for having one of you based here?
One big thing for the go overseas industry that this is a theory created by Masayoshi Son, so-called the time machine theory, because it is called a mature business model, which is very sophisticated in a mature market like China or US, and we brought them into a new market. emerging market, and then we can copy the business model. So I think this is something that both the China and US team, those two big mature markets, they have many successful advantages like the business model and also the technology, the engineers, and it can be used in a foreign market.
So you're basically thinking that there are Chinese entrepreneurs who can make businesses that you learn through this time machine paradigm, either from other US businesses or other Chinese businesses.
Yeah, exactly. Many companies that they are rooted in China at their first day. Some of them start their business in Silicon Valley, and some are Chinese teams, some are even foreign teams. So we invest mainly in the US and Chinese team and doing their business in the global market.
So Grandview's been around for 6 years. Is there anything that's changed?
We can see the opportunities is evolving all the time. From 6 years ago, I think 5 years ago, most of the Chinese team doing their overseas businesses, they are trying to do TMT, and to be a word, it's called application go overseas. So they just develop application and they just put it into the iOS store, maybe Android store. It's very easy. You don't need any local team. So we can see that right now, many companies, they build up their local team to emphasize their localizations. So it's different. Many teams are doing applications, many are doing gaming like e-commerce, many are doing the DTC, the branding. So I think, and also even many teams are doing the SaaS. We can see that Zoom, those companies, although they are Silicon Valley based team, and you can see that they are Chinese background founders. So many teams start to do a higher level of the high technology. Also, in terms of the market, so previously, many Chinese team, their main market is US market. But right now, we can see, especially last year, after the COVID, the top 3 markets which Chinese entrepreneurs invested into, Brazil, Indonesia, and the US.
I wasn't aware that Brazil had become so big. I know Southeast Asia has always been popular with Chinese entrepreneurs.
Actually, currently, you can hardly find any market that without any Chinese or US entrepreneurs. So we can see that many Chinese teams doing their business in Africa, in Europe. Some are unicorns, So for example, in the Middle East, they have a very big company called Yalla. It's a US stock listed company, and it's a Chinese company. I think that in many markets, they all have all kinds of different entrepreneurs there. And why many people are talking about the Southeast Asia and the Latin America area, I think the reason is that those markets, they have a large amount of the customer numbers. For example, Jakarta is one of the big cities that have like tens of millions of people, especially young people. And you can just put a new product onto the market and try it very rapidly. It is very easy to make your go-to-market strategy.
I wanted to ask if you have any sort of key lessons that you can share from the last couple of years of investing and then watching the companies grow, right?
I think 2 things will be very important right now. One thing is that the go overseas investment is different than a global investment. So how to interpret it? I think the situation are quite different. There is a word called FOMO, FOMO, fear of missing out. So many companies like Anderson Harwood, like Sakura, they start their investment in India. I think for most of the VCs, actually, they do not have the advantage and they do not have enough resources to invest into the local companies. From the past experiences, we find out that good mature market team can do their business much better than the local company. So we tend to more invest into Chinese company or US company. And the other one is that we've been talking about time machine theory. So currently, you can see that many companies are trying to copy Chinese or US business models, but they are evolving a lot. And they create their own different way doing the business. They are very successful. For example, the OU, which is an Indian company, and also Gojek, obviously, which is a very big company, a giant in Indonesia. So I think the opportunity is growing locally right now. So it's different.
So how does that impact your investment thesis? Your point earlier was that you still prefer more entrepreneurs from more mature markets, but then you're also saying that the emerging markets have their own innovations.
The thing connect those 2 issues together is that A good team, you need to study the needs of the local market very well. And right now, what do we call the Air Force business model doesn't work. Previously, we can see that it's like a drone, something that you just throw your application to the market without putting any local team. Many of our team, their operation teams locally in the emerging market. So I think this is very important. For example, Line Bike in San Francisco is a Chinese go overseas market actually. So built by the Chinese founders and also the supply chain based in China. First beginning, so they try to build the bicycle, obviously. But later on, after the localization, I find out that the bicycle doesn't work. So they evolving into the scooter, right? I think that's many similar examples can be drawn.
I didn't realize you would consider that as a Chinese Chuhai 项目. I guess that makes a lot of sense. What are some interesting portfolio companies you have that embody this behavior that you just talked about?
Yeah, so as we said, we kind of focusing three different industries currently. One is the mobile internet, TMT. In this part, almost half of the TMT entrepreneurs doing the go overseas business, doing the gaming. So gaming is very big. Here, we invest into a company which is very interesting called Hybe, and their product is called Archio. The other one, I invested into a company called Shoplaza. So it is very similar to Shopify. The second direction for our fund is obviously the e-commerce and DTC. Shoplaza is serving needs of the emerging e-commerce entrepreneurs to build their online store, which is very similar to Shopify. And the third one, we focus on to the Chinese SaaS companies. We've invested into several SaaS companies in Silicon Valley, actually, founded by Chinese founders. One good company is called Hydro. They are helping the HRs to use the AI to do the more efficient hiring in the future.
So I wanted to really dig in specifically on DTC. DTC has been on such a tear in China recently in the past, I would say,
very hot.
Especially the last 2 years. And I think the most impressive cross-border one is Shein. We have everyone talking about it. That's like a huge company, might overtake Zara in terms of gross revenues in the next year or so. What do you think about the industry? And besides like ultra fast fashion, what are some of the other opportunities that you think are interesting for Chinese entrepreneurs going abroad?
Previously, if you're talking about the production, the manufacturing industry, China has been the world factory for a while. So from 30 years ago, many Chinese companies around Shanghai, around Guangdong, they are doing the OEM. They produce for the big brands in US or in Europe. They offer the factory, they offer the workloads. And after a couple of years of doing ODM and OEM, they find out that they have the production abilities. They want to have their own brands. So I think this trend is growing even gradually. Before I joined the Grandview Capital, I was working in Haohaizi, so a good baby, a Chinese listed company. And this is the route that they walked through in the past 30 years ago, 1990s. So start from OEM, and then they start to try to do their own business, their own brand in US. So previously they had enough funds to do all kinds of production, to do all kinds of the brand development. They are not very good at it. The thing is changing right now. So right now that the whole ecosystem is complete, especially last year because of the COVID-19. Many of the companies and many people are staying at home. So more e-commerce to purchase things online. So I think that's one big reason for Shein to come out, to be noticed by most of the people. And also the Chinese supply chain has become a very mature state in the past 5 years. Their servability is very simple. They can launch 3,000 new SKU in one day. And they try it very fastly. So if they find out some SKU is a good catch, easy to sell, they will duplicate it immediately. They will produce that SKU immediately. They also have very strong merchandise and marketing abilities. If you're talking about the opportunity in D2C, I think at least there are two different kinds right now that we could be focusing on. One is that the branding, the new brand itself. So many companies are trying to build new brands, new products. The other trend is that the services that helping the D2C companies to expanding to the new markets. Here, you can find the SaaS company, you can find MarTech company.
When you talk about brands, are there specific sectors that you think are interesting? And also, you had said that Shein is very hard to replicate.
I think at the early several months, there are many companies that are trying to say that they try to do a new Shein. But right now, you can see that almost no people will say that they want to copy Shein because all the players in this market start to notice copy Shein is a mission impossible. They just try to be copy Shein in some sector or maybe just a one layer or one stage in the whole supply chain. Currently, actually, most of the Chinese companies are doing, I think they're still doing like the fashion is very big. And also the home decoration is very big. And also electric, especially the small electric players in the kitchen.
But you haven't invested in them. I guess it sounds like you are less enthusiastic about the brands and more excited about the services. So then with these services, right now, Shell Plaza is servicing Chinese merchants trying to go abroad. Do you expect that ultimately they're trying to service much more than Chinese merchants?
I agree with that. Actually, the team is try to build up more advantages and try to seek the opportunity to seize customers in the emerging market, something like that. So I think this is very possible in future, especially if you could combine the supply chain advantages in China. So I think the ecosystem is getting more and more mature. And definitely Shop Plaza is seeking the possibility to do that. But who knows, the Shopify is very powerful.
Besides, I guess, DTC, we talked about SaaS, right? Are SaaS portfolio companies of yours from day one, are they interested in selling outside of China?
So currently, there are two different things in this industry in SaaS direction. If you're talking about the companies that are offering the e-commerce, many of their customers actually are based in China. So they are selling the service to the Chinese customers. But for the other ones, for example, the Hydro payment service, or maybe like some CRM service or something, so they tend to have their, at least the first batch of the customers they get from US or the mature market, because the SaaS business is different from US and China. So in China, we don't call it software as a service. Sometimes talking about joke, we call it service as a service. You have to build up a very particular service for each of your customer. It is very hard for a startup to do that. So companies like Zoom or other SaaS companies, the environment are more welcome in US.
Are you seeing a lot of competition these days? Are there more and more funds who are doing what you're doing? I would assume so, but want to hear your opinion.
The answer is definitely yes. The thing is that from 2015, there are only 3 funds in China put their mainly focus on to go overseas market. So I remember very clearly that at the end of the year 2018, we made a cocktail party in Shanghai. There are like 70 different funds joined our cocktail party. And almost all the Chinese famous fund, they start to build a team or maybe a department to focusing on to the Chinese Chuhai. We feel like this is a high-speed way. We are driving a taxi or bus something. We get onto this speedway very early and we are moving very slowly. From 2018, we find out there are many competitors that are driving Ferrari onto this high speed and they start catching up. And you can see that I think in China, especially for the TMT industry, there are only 2 possible direction to seize more market share. One is Xiachen, it's called go to the villages, to the small cities. The other one is Chuhai, it's called go to the new emerging market to go global. So they do not want to miss this opportunity.
I have a lot of friends who are operators in China, and they tell me they're constantly getting recruited by these funds to say, hey, like that app that you're working on, do you want to make it for, the Middle East market?
Now, many funds are trying to do this kind of thing. And also almost all the Chinese big internet companies are doing this. CVC is doing this right now. Like Tencent, Alibaba, they start their global investment a while ago, So currently you can see ByteDance and also many of the successful overseas companies, they start to do the investment. I think that actually helps the whole ecosystem become more mature and healthier, So if the whole system is only 3 or 5 early stage fund, many of the portfolios do not have the resources to grow big. But right now it's more sophisticated and we have a very comprehensive investment and entrepreneur environment, both in China and the emerging market. This is good. This is the thing that we want to have. And also many US companies are offering their resources to the Chinese go-overseas companies too, like Google, Facebook. So I think this is good.
You mean through their like cloud programs or things like that?
Yeah, so many of our friends that they feel like Facebook is not launched in China, Google is not launched in China, but you know what? So a huge amount of the income of those two companies that comes from China because their advertisement customers are all Chinese overseas companies. And also actually their products are really helpful to those Chinese companies who want to expand into the new emerging market or maybe to US. So it is obviously that they try to put more resources into the whole Asia market, especially the Chinese market.
I like to ask always, what is either something that people always get wrong about your industry or what you do that people would really understand?
Okay, I think one thing I want to point out is that previously there is a big trend that Chinese companies are copying from US right now. And actually currently many people or many funds are seeing a trend very important to copy the business model from China. So I think currently in the go-overseas market, we can't just rely on Chinese or US business models. We have to have a more localization business models. So I don't think that the way of just the copying is working currently.
Got it. I agree with you. That's why I like to call it inspired by China. Okay, cool. Richard, how can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, I have my LinkedIn page that's Richard Su, Grandview Capital.
If you're an entrepreneur who is inspired by China and want to do your business globally, maybe you should look up Richard at Grandview. That's it, everyone. Thanks for listening. And if you're really serious about China tech, join our insider community. You do have to take a quiz, so make sure you listen to all of our past episodes on China tech on our main Tech Buzz China podcast. Also, a huge thank you to our editors, Carrie Huang and Bryce Ye, and of course, the entire Pandaily team for all of your help. See you next time!